One of the really important pieces where someone might think evergreen doesn't work for them is not running ads. I think it's almost essential, unless you've got, I mean, even if you have got a really large organic following, I think advertising is almost a non-negotiable in like 2025, particularly like you don't want to be victim to the algorithm. You don't want to be looking at your sales 1 month going, oh, did my reach just not be as good? Like advertising is the only way you can control those outcomes.
Everything that you've just said, as far as alignment, as far as marketing, as far as, yes, you can run ads, but you better make sure that you're really serving the right problem. Okay, so we're back again with Polly Lavarello, who is she's an everyday sales strategist. How about that, Polly? Because you put evergreen scaling strategist, but does everyday sales strategist also work?
I like that. How can I hire you?
Just coming out of the previous episode where you gave a snapshot of your business and then we went into like some of the highs and lows and just a really good conversation about how you've been growing your business. But before we hit record here, you told me lots of launches are flopping and that is a dodgy horse.
To back, yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking, as a Facebook and Instagram ad manager, I've seen the same thing too and been on the ad side of the equation and even taken the fall. Sometimes you kind of just have to, even if it's not really your fault as an ads manager. But yeah, launches this past year have been failing more than ever.
Yeah, no, they have. And so obviously it came up in the context of showing that business mentors out there that you used to be exclusively supporting coaches with live launching have started adapting the language of everyday sales into their vocabulary, and into how they support their clients. And I was sharing how unjust that is because I've been doing it for 3 years now. I was ahead of that curve because, like you say, similarly as someone who was supporting coaches with ads, and my livelihood depended on their launches being successful. So and knowing that you could take the same expertise to one funnel and one client, and they would have crazy ROAS. Like one time we spent $5,000 on ads and they had a 250K launch, like, phenomenal results. And then you could take the same spend, the same kind of strategy, even to a similar funnel to a different client, and it could just totally dive bomb. And, and that same client might know the other client, be like, how did this client get this? And I'm getting that. And, you often would be the one who would take the rap for poor results, which is really just not fun, not fun at all. And that's, again, one of the kind of backhanded ways that I kind of felt motivated to help people recognize before they've hired an ads manager what's required to succeed. Because, and the other piece is actually beyond whether you're, because I'm not against launching. I think marketing pushes are a good thing to do at least once or twice a year. But what is short-sighted is running ads just for a launch without thinking about beforehand, list building and what you could be doing to make list building more profitable, actually, how you could be making money from your list building if you approach it strategically. But likewise, what you're going to do on the other side of that live launch, what are you doing with those leads to ensure that you can be making sales so that you're not essentially potentially closing the doors to sales between launches? Because what I saw being a really common phenomenon for coaches is that they would live launch and then kind of try and buffer the rest with one-to-one clients. But if those launches were progressively doing worse and worse, they'd increasingly be taking on more one-to-one clients, which would then increasingly limit their capacity in terms of time or energy to do any launching. And before you know it, they're running a business that they actually want to run away from because they just don't feel like they have any control. Also, of course, the leads for the one-to-ones will start to dry up because of the lack of live launching efforts that were going on before and the list building that was going on alongside that. So you can very easily create a coaching business that kind of cannibalizes itself within a year to 2 years if you don't think about your business model first. And a lot of people are so preoccupied by quick wins, like how can I make 2K in a week or how can I make 5K in 2 weeks, that they're not actually thinking about how do I make sure that I'm essentially almost building a kind of system of, a business model. And I'm trying to think what the word is here. It's like a kind of ecosystem. That's the word. An ecosystem of offers which essentially fulfill one another and also enable you, never to be in a position to say, sorry, my mastermind isn't enrolling right now. Sorry, my signature offer is at capacity right now. Sorry, come back to me in a week's time when I've got that. But it doesn't need to be like that. And I will say, I think it's important to speak to the argument that some people make, which is, oh, but the problem with evergreen is if it's always open, people will just go, oh, well, I'll do it next month or the month after that. There are really simple evergreen strategies you can deploy to create some level of urgency, whether it's like time limited offers or whether it is, just even renaming your funnel, just giving it a slightly different entrance point, so that it looks new and shiny to that person. So you re-engage. That there are so many really simple, repeatable things you can do that don't take up much time and energy that can still give you those large revenue injections. But the beauty of evergreen, of course, is it's compound. And so also if you price your offer suite in a way that you don't need 20 sales per month to kind of hit multi six figures across the year, then you're also making your life a lot easier. I once shared the example of, like, if you made 3 sales a month of 3K on your 90-day, let's say, entry level program, and did that consistently across a year, you've already had 100K a year. And people are like, oh, okay, so I'm not having to put the pressure to get 12 sales or 9 sales in a launch I do every 3 months. 3 sales, that's less than 1 sale per week. You could be doing 3 sales calls if you wanted to do sales calls. Not everyone has to do those. But say you did 3 and you converted 1 in 3 sales calls a week, 1 sale per week. And you're making a pretty, basically that's the foundations, because once you've got a 6-figure coaching business, some people say it's an inconsequential number that people kind of laud for no reason. I actually think there's a really good reason to care about having a 6-figure coaching business, because if you don't want your business to be you, if you want to have team members who can take over for you so you can have time off or be poorly or look after poorly family members, if you're like me and you're the sole earner and you want a business that's going to last for you, then you need to have some kind of team. And also that creates the consistency piece, which enables you. I remember when I first started working in ads, meeting coaches who'd be like, well, our prediction for this launch is we're going to be anywhere between, I don't know, this and that, and forecasting their finances for the year, and just thinking, how do you do that? Every month to month, I don't even know if I'm still going to be here. Like, not quite that level extreme, but I remember just really, and that's what I realized later on. When you have a team and you are measuring the data of your results, you're seeing the impact of your social media strategy, you're seeing the impact of your funnels, you're seeing the impact of your ads, and you can start to recognize the patterns and trends across the year and across the months. You then do get to play it like a kind of composer plays an orchestra. Like, it becomes really like simple. But a lot of people don't allow themselves to trust they could even have a business like that. And that is heartbreaking.
Polly, I feel like this first bit can be so inspirational for somebody who's listening. Um, let's give them context. Dear listener, meet Polly Lavarello. In case you didn't tune into the last episode where we actually got to know each other, so you don't know her. She is a everyday, well, we'll just say what you said, which is you are
Everyday sales strategist,
an evergreen
scaling mentor.
scaling strategist, a specialist in everyday sales. And in this episode, we're actually going to get into how to create launch size revenue without launching. And the specifics of that will be diving into her funnel, which is doing exactly what the title of this episode said. So if you came here to turn your group program into everyday sales machine or into an everyday sales machine, you're in the right spot. Um, Polly's evergreen scaling strategies, they turn audaciously ambitious and highly skilled business owners into cushy CEOs. And I like that concept of having some cush in your business, knowing that there could be fluctuation in the day to day or month to month, but that it's up here fluctuating and your needs or your bottom line is way down here. And that cush is something that really does speak to me because my wife and I have those kind of conversations. So through for your elevate for, oh, hold on a second. You just told me, Paula, you changed the name.
I know, it's Everyday Sales Accelerator. I'm
It's
so sorry.
everyday sales. Okay, fine, great. We're just gonna, it's okay. This is how it is. So through your everyday sales accelerator, which was known as the Elevate for Evergreen Accelerator, but now it's the Everyday Sales Accelerator, which I think is a much more appropriate name, by the way.
100%.
Yeah, you're giving reliable, simple, repeatable, and customizable methods to create a cushy stream of dream clients, monthly recurring income, and so much time back that it feels weird. Okay, so dear listener, this is going to make a lot more sense for you because we're going to go quick. If you take a moment and go down below and get Polly's guide, it's called How to Turn Your Group Program into an Everyday Sales Machine. And that is linked up below. The reason I'm starting with this is because that's where her funnel starts. And in the next couple of minutes, we're just going to go through her funnel and through her offer suite, and you can see how people naturally come in and how she serves them. I remember I started asking these questions because she said she was inundated in sales calls. And while I talk to many successful business owners, I don't always hear people saying, I'm inundated in sales calls. I can't handle them all. I just have to turn this faucet of leads off. And so let's start right there. I went to the website. That is a free lead magnet, how to turn your group program into an everyday sales machine, right? And then from there, how are all these sales calls come? Can you just walk us through the funnel? Like, where do people, what happens after somebody gets this lead magnet?
So I'm not going to pretend my website has crazy traffic. It doesn't. Although I will also admit that I'm not very good at tracking the data on it. But I will say the majority of the leads that come into my business come in via Facebook ads. So a little ding ding what you do. I know there are other ways to kind of make these things work, but that's where I see the majority of my leads. I love it because what I think is really powerful about advertising is when you kind of fine tune your messaging to meet your ideal client at exactly that point of urgency, things can happen really fast. So I guess that's the most important thing to say about the beginning of this funnel is that it's called How to Turn Your Group Program into an Everyday Sales Machine, which means that in terms of my organic following, there may not be a huge percentage of people who'd be into that. So I think one of the first important things to say when it comes to a funnel is that even if organically you're not seeing people picking stuff up, that doesn't mean that they don't that it doesn't have a value. And advertising is a great way to validate that there is. Um, and I will also say that I played around with different names for essentially exactly the same guide. Like I used to call it the Cushy CEO Roadmap until I took a moment to look at myself and think, Polly, you're breaking your own rules here. That is not obvious what it does. Like, unless you want to be a cushy CEO, which most people haven't really considered what that might mean,
I feel like
it's not
cushy
clear.
equals a little extra padding in all the places that we don't want extra padding.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going into a level of detail here that may be excessive, but in the same way that, we just talked about how I changed the name of my accelerator, this is the work when you're doing stuff evergreen. You're like constantly looking at the data going, I feel like this could do a bit better. Why might that be? And every single time, like one of the things that I did recently was think, how do I make it more does what it says on the tin? Like my branding is already very strong and unique. So I don't need to use clever words to bring people in. I can just say what it does, which is in this case, how do you turn your group program into an everyday sales machine? By creating a scalable, constantly enrollable group program. And let's break it down so people understand what that looks like. So, first, the guide was created. Again, the guide has been like, there have been so many iterations of this guide. The most recent one, I added more visuals in because I know people tend to be very visual and they can absorb more complex ideas through visuals rather than through, like, if you say the words, someone's like, oh, that sounds great, but I don't really have the capacity for it right now. So I might come back to this later when I have, well, if they see it as a visual, they're like, oh, it's as simple as ABC. So,
Okay, so where does somebody go after they download the guide? And I'm super curious, like, how are you generating the sales calls? And I want to know too, your secret to making the kind of revenue you do, which is healthy, I think from what I understand, is you have like a very in tune ascension model. And if that turns somebody off, then it's just a way of serving people in progressive steps. Can you go through that for us?
So in terms of the sales calls, well, one, I try and avoid the sales calls in that I have a tripwire to 10 days to speedy sales. So people can go into that mini offer. It's only £27. It's usually 97. So I get a good percentage of people going into that. I usually offset my ad spend or get close to it with the sales of that mini offer. And then often people then spend 10 days going through this challenge. The whole goal is that they make the sum of money that actually gets them into the program. And so, but at the end, they have the invitation to book a free mini consult with me. And at the end of that mini consult, that's when they often say, I want to join the accelerator. Am I in a good position to do that? So I may at some point remove that, but for now, that's what's working. But I think that's the main thing we need to know with these ascension models and with evergreen selling is that we need to be like curious scientists, and we need to be looking at the data and recognizing how do we make this more efficient all the time, but we don't have to have everything lined up all at once. Has that answered your question?
That does answer my question. I don't meet many people as a Facebook and Instagram ad manager, I don't meet many folks who have a tripwire offer, a welcome offer, an offer right there on their thank you page that is almost causing them to break even on ad spend. So I love that.
Yeah, no, it was going really well, but like I say, it kind of got to the stage where it was a bit too well and too many calls, which is a lovely problem to have, and I need to go back and but I also there are bits of the funnel that needed fine-tuning still that I wanted to go back to, like certain emails that I want to rewrite and stuff. So, but yeah, it's really exciting and really promising. And like I say, like the but also what happens when you commit to something, when you I once one of my first ever evergreen clients that really succeeded after working with me, and again, she's someone who's making multi six figures every year with her evergreen funnel, but it didn't happen for overnight. She took 6 months, and I went to her and I said, I was about to say her name then, but I was like, blah de blah. So many other people will give up and do something entirely different, like create a new offer or live launch or do something to try and get better results. Why did you commit to this? And she went, because there was no other option. There was no other alternative. This is how it needed to be. I was not going back to one to one. And now she is the one who's, getting to live her best life. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of people just aren't willing to back themselves and commit to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that word. Commit would define what I've been doing behind the scenes in my business in taking the practical steps to shift my revenue like you're shifting yours. Probably 95% of my revenue comes from the ads management side of the business, and I don't want that anymore. And so I set a goal to have just 30% of my revenue come from the sale of my online courses. And so that took me committing to that and committing with time and with money to develop this funnel on the back end. And I'm starting to see the fruit from that. But back to you. Back to you. I love how specific your lead magnet is. And part of our conversation was that clearly a lead magnet that's called turn your group program into an everyday sales machine is attracting people who have a group program. And then your tripwire, your welcome offer is aligned. It's 10 days to speedy sales. What's the next step in your funnel? I know you said somebody can come into that mini course and then they get an opportunity to have a discovery call with you, right? So, what's the next help that somebody can get from you if they're seeing success, or I should say, once they're seeing success, since so many people already have? It's like, are they doing the thing that you teach in the mini course? But once they see success there, what's the next step that somebody can take to work with you?
Well, very conveniently, the average amount of money people make doing that mini course is the same as the investment in my core program, which works really nicely. But when they come in, it's essentially, I mean, it's appealing because it's 90 days. So if you are launching your first group program, or if you're trying to see how you can better sell your group program, there's something magical about 90 days that just seems to really get people into it. And the other thing that really helps a 90-day program sell is having a really clear outcome, something where that is super tangible. So in the case of my accelerator, it's basically following through with the whole why they signed up for the lead magnet in the first place, which is turning or creating a group program that will be generating everyday sales for them. Now, obviously, it's not going to make everyday sales overnight, but our goal is usually, if they're earlier on in business and we want to get 3 or 5 people into that first cohort without ads, it's basically validating the offer, validating the funnel in those 90 days so that they can then focus on the visibility and the kind of getting more eyeballs on their funnel on the other side of that. So it's launching their everyday sales group program.
I think this is a concept that people hear about, but so few people do the work, which is to actually make sure that your let's call it a low ticket offer is really aligned between your free offer if you have one and the core offer. And so for you, the mini course 10 days to speedy sales does fit perfectly as evidenced by your business revenue and the stories that I'm seeing on your website of people who you've helped, fits perfectly between there and the Everyday Sales Accelerator. And you said the average amount of money that somebody makes coming off of the or having taken the mini course is pretty much like the investment for the Everyday
Yeah,
Sales
it's about
Accelerator.
3,000. Like what we've seen anywhere from like $1,500 to 3,000. One person's made $5,000. So, yeah, it's pretty impressive. And in that moment, I think it just really helps remind them of what they can achieve when they have some simple strategies under their belt. So it's kind of recognizing when they wrap that underneath what they're doing, because that's the whole premise of having a consistent, successful business is you need to marry both having a funnel with rinse and repeat marketing strategies that work for you. So those 10 days, they're getting some rinse and repeat marketing strategies that are going to help them make more sales. When we then have a funnel underpinning all of that, then like the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the title again. How to create launch size revenue without launching. Have you ever done this without ads?
I was going to say, I'm really glad you said that because I was going to say one of the really important pieces where someone might think evergreen doesn't work for them is not running ads. I think it's almost essential, unless you've got, I mean, even if you have got a really large organic following, I think advertising is almost a non-negotiable in like 2025, particularly like you don't want to be victim to the algorithm. You don't want to be looking at your sales 1 month going, oh, did my reach just not be as good? Like advertising is the only way you can control those outcomes.
I agree. I really, really do agree. I love what I'm hearing because it's something that I taught in a course, which no longer is selling. Actually, it's discontinued. But everything that you've just said, as far as alignment, as far as marketing, as far as yes, you can run ads, but you better make sure that you're really serving the right problem. Can you just share with the listener really quick one thing that you wish you had known sooner that would have accelerated uh, your progress to your current revenue goals and beyond?
Oh, you know what? The challenging thing is, I think it really relates to everything we were just saying, which is I wish I had stopped. I wish once I'd recognized I'd created an offer that sold and people were getting good results, that I had just doubled down on that and made my focus visibility, made my focus advertising, made my focus refining that funnel rather than busying myself with different strategies, different traffic sources, different things that actually were a distraction and probably slowed down my growth.
Okay. Once you realized, so what did you do then when you first realized that you had the offer that sold? And it was the mini course or was it the accelerator?
It's all of it, really. The accelerator has kind of evolved. I mean, really, it's been in existence for about 3 years in some capacity or another. Like at one point, it was a more premium mastermind, and then I made it more accessible so that it could help more people. So it's kind of adapted and evolved. But you know, ever since I've known, I have been better at committing to it. But I'm not going to lie, the ADHD part of me has occasionally gone off on some random tangents. But I will say my commitment for 2025 is being all in on these offers, and it has been probably for the last 6 months. And that probably is why I had February inundated with calls and had to turn the funnel off. So it does pay off. But I think, like a lot of things to do with business and marketing, it's not an overnight thing, but then nothing is. And I think the sooner we accept that most things aren't overnight, the sooner we'll actually create a robust business that truly is sustainable and truly supports us, and one where we don't equate hustle to success.
One where we don't equate hustle to success. Thank you for sharing a bit behind the scenes of like what I would call an extremely efficient business. Primarily two offers. Yes, you have the mastermind, but you're in the process of shifting more of your revenue to come from the accelerator. So I see such a simple but yet elegant business because of its simplicity.
Well, it allows you to be the best as well. And I think that's important. You know, less really is more.
What do you mean by be the best?
When you're doing too many things, how can you be the master of all of them? It's much better to choose one area and be a master in it, and then everyone wins.